We have Jennifer Diamond today. Welcome, Jennifer. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. Hello, beautiful people. Hello, Skye. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come on your channel and chat with you. I'm really excited.
Oh, I'm so excited for you to share your journey. And you've had brain tumors, nerve pain, chronic sinusitis. This has been going on since you're a child. And you completely healed this with a raw food diet, which is absolutely incredible. Oh, sorry, a plant-based diet.
Yes, I do eat a lot of raw, but I do some cooked food and plants. Just amazing. The power of the plant.
It is amazing. So can you take me back? Where did this all begin?
Okay, so yes, not knowing at the time that was the beginning, but looking back, I truly believe it was when I was a child. I'm an only child. My parents had a very tumultuous relationship, a divorce early on. There was a lot of turmoil and a lot of stress. And I also, at that time, had a lot of allergies, both food and environmental. And I believe, looking back, that those two things really caused a lot of inflammation in the body. I ended up having some allergy testing when I was about 5 years old. And I started with conventional allergy injections about that age, on and off, for 40 years.
Wow.
So
That's a long time.
A long time. I just thought that was how my world was. I'm allergic to everything. But then as time progressed, as a teenager, I found out that I had pain in my abdomen. And after going to the gynecologist and having tests, I was told that I had an ovarian tumor cyst the size of an egg, that they wanted to take out both my ovaries. I was a teenager. I was just turned 18. And at the time, I was in Arizona. Most of my childhood was in California. But as a teenager, I came to Arizona being a rebel for a few months, and this pain started. And my father was a doctor in Illinois. And so he flew me out to see a very high top surgeon in this field to check me out. And it was not the size of an egg. It was the size of a grapefruit. They did not need to take out both of my ovaries, but the surgeon did tell me, had he known the size and what it was, he would not have had me fly across the US, because there was a lot of poison in there, and anything even as small as a small turbulin can rupture it. And then if it goes in the bloodstream, it's over.
Wow, that's incredible. And how old are you at this point?
How old was I? About 18 years old. And, at that time, there was still a lot of chaos going on with my family. My father, he was bipolar. So if you're familiar with that, and it was not diagnosed, that I never heard the term at that point, but there was a lot of craziness and ups and downs. And so, there was still a lot of anxiety and stress during this time. I had learned that both of my parents took me off of their insurance because they both had me on their insurance. And without communicating, they thought, well, she only needs one. So they both took me off. So then I had this big surgery, and it turned out no health insurance. And because my father was a doctor and on staff at this hospital, they were very gracious to me. So I feel grateful for that. But, things just continued to progress. I ate the way I thought was healthy at the time. My family, we ate the standard American, chicken with no skin and yogurt and, cereal and, low fat. Actually, it was fat-free dairy milk. I mean, we thought that was the way to go. I did have steamed vegetables and potatoes, but, it had seasoned salt on it and butter and all that stuff. And once I, okay, so for weight, I did feel like I had a little bit of like my weight would go up and then it would go down. And I managed that by just doing more exercise, you know?
Right. Yep.
That's how you do it. But as I learned, that's not how you do it. And I also dealt with a lot of acne, like cystic acne, where it's these huge bumps that are hormonal. And it was just horrific. I was treated with medications and injections where they had to monitor your kidney function, and they say you can only have this once in your life. But actually, they gave it to me twice in my life. And, and just from there, I also had 3 children at a very young age, and they had a lot of issues. And so dealing with them, I had a divorce, and I had their stuff that I was dealing with. My youngest had asthma, where we had to do inhalers, these breathing machines 6 times a day. And so there was just always a lot of stress. That's why I'm bringing all that up. And then I started having problems with my sinuses. And I was allergy related, but what I learned was that, it was just like a thing that happened to me, and the allergy shots weren't correcting it. And so there was a time when I went into the emergency room because I woke up in the middle of the night and I swallowed my saliva and my ears completely plugged and would not unplug. And I went to the emergency room and they said to me, there's nothing we could do. You need a surgery. You need to go and see like a specialist, an otolaryngologist, which is like an ENT, ears, nose, throat doctor. And so I started doing that, and they showed me my x-ray. And on the x-ray, when you look at sinuses, these are the sinus areas. They're up here. There's different parts. They're in between the nose. And on the x-ray, those areas should all be black, showing that there's airflow going through. And everything around it would be white because that's the bone, the cheekbone and the skull. Most of mine was just white. So there was no airflow or very little airflow. And so I did have 3 sinus surgeries. And the first one I think was in 1997. And I had sinus infections. I was on prednisone. I was always on antibiotics. I can't even remember the pharmacist saying to me, maybe you should get another doctor because you're on medications every single month and that's really not good.
Yeah. And how old are you at this stage? How old are you now?
So I was probably in my mid-30s. I had my children very young. I was a young mom, and it just every time I caught a break, something else happened, and so that was just the beginning, really.
Wow. And so what happened after this? So did you have the surgery for your nose?
Yes, I had 3 different sinus surgeries, and in between I had infections where they couldn't find the infection. They would check my I think they did a CT scan, which is a scan in a machine that allows you to see all the sinus, even in the back of the head, the whole head and brain, because the doctor said, I don't see anything. See, what they do is they go with a little camera and they look up in the sinus and then they project it so I can see too. And everything looked cleared and I kept saying something's not right. Well, after that, they did find something and it was hiding behind the eyes. And so then they finally treated me for an insane sinus infection. And, there were times when I flew during these different 3 surgeries. I flew on a plane and I didn't realize that they were plugged up. And the descent going down on the plane caused me to throw up. I had such increased, terrible pain, racing sensation. I thought I was going blind, honestly. They had the staff come and help me, and they're like, there's nothing we can do, like the plane has to land. And I actually was on my way to Mexico. So I got off the plane and I was in pretty bad shape. And so I did eventually go to like their pharmacy there, and I just bought anything that I could, and I just took everything I could. And when I got home, I made it. The surgeon said, because I had something called Afrin nasal spray, and they said that shrinks the tissues temporarily, and that's really what saved you from rupturing on the plane.
I can't believe you didn't rupture. Like the extent of this in your face and the pressure is just like my brain at the moment is trying to comprehend that. You poor thing.
It's really hard to comprehend, and I hope nobody ever experiences it, because I remember feeling this sensation. I don't know if it was this racing sensation across the top of my eyebrow. I thought I was going blind, and that sensation was air trying to escape. It was trapped. You know, when you're clear and you descend or you drive through the mountains or any type of change in elevation, your ears will pop and it clears. But when it's not clearing, the pressure builds up and it can really cause serious damage.
Just unbelievable. And so did you have a surgery to relieve that pressure?
Yes, I did. I think that was the second surgery. But it didn't clear. I mean, it was like a temporary fix because I kept getting more stuff. I had a lot of mucus. I had a lot of inflammation, and I didn't know at the time until later that may have really been food related. I believe that it was food related. Environment plays a role, but when you have so much inflammation in your body doesn't have a chance because it's constantly trying to deal with what's here, and then exterior or the way you're eating or all these other players come in, and the body is overwhelmed, and it needs it needs to just clear things out so that it can deal with things the way it was meant to.
Yeah, it sounds like it's trying to isolate the inflammation and infection constantly, whether it's a tumor or whether it's sinusitis. And these surgeons, like myself, are removing it somewhere, and it's literally exploding out somewhere else for you. Poor thing.
Yeah, and they did take pieces of the bone above my eyebrow in the sinus so that they were making new drainage, which is it's like crazy to think. And nowadays they can do everything through the nostril, but many years ago, I understand that they would just cut right into the face. And I mean, I can't imagine what kind of scars I would have if that were the case at the time. And I also had a lot of tumors. I had a tumor on my ovary, which we talked about. I had tumors in my breast. I had on my finger. I had it on my knuckle. I even had one in my pituitary.
Yeah. So when did this pituitary? Because let me bring this up onto the screen here. You had a surgery for your pituitary. Was that what happened next?
Yes. So leading up to the third sinus surgery, I'm realizing that the medications that they're giving me, I had sinus machines like nebulizers and rinses and compound pharmacy medications and all this stuff. All day, every day, that I would have to do to try to manage. In addition, I would also have the allergy shots to try to manage the chronic sinus problem. And they diagnosed me with something called chronic fungal sinusitis. And that is when you're actually allergic to a particle that you can't see that's in our air that we breathe. It's in our air. And I actually asked one of my surgeons, where can I move? Where can I go to live so that I can breathe again? And they said, underwater. There is nowhere. That's what they said.
Yeah. Yeah, a little off topic here, but that's what I think when a lot of people have mold problems and issues, and it really is going to follow most places. I mean, there's places where it's going to be less, but it's definitely hard. So yeah, go on. What happened after that?
Yeah, so I had the getting ready for the surgery, for the sinus surgery, the third one. they have to do these scans so that they can map out where they're going to go. And they use this machine and the scan to migrate in the sinus area. So I had to get this special scan. I think it was a CT scan. There were MRIs that I had a lot of contrast as well. But the CT scan that I believe that I had, that the radiologist that read it noticed something on the corner that just got picked up, just on the corner of the screen, and zoomed in and said, follow up, something isn't right here. And it just so happened that it got picked up my pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland is a gland that really helps with all the function of our hormones, our ability to, urinate, bladder control, all kinds of things. And it's the size of a little tiny pea. And it's little tiny, and it does a big job. And it's between the eyes, and it's at the base of the brain. And it was caught on the screen, on the scan. And so they had me go to a neurologist and a neurosurgeon and all these people. They're checking everything. Everything's fine. And they said, well, we're going to have you go to this guy, and he's just going to look at you. And so I went to this surgeon at Mayo Clinic, a neurosurgeon, and he said, you don't want to meet people like me, you're going to be fine, because you don't want to meet people like me, because that means you need a brain or a spine surgery, and you don't want that. And that stuck with me, that he said that to me. And they said was, our equipment is very sophisticated, and we pick up things now that normally we wouldn't. And a lot of people are walking around with these, and don't worry about it. But we will monitor it for, every 6 months and see. But nothing's going to happen. It's going to be fine. Well, every time I had one of those MRIs with contrast to monitor it, I would always think about that doctor saying that to me. And he meant it like a good thing, like, don't worry. But I took it as, wow, it's not a good thing to know this guy it was a wonderful surgeon and a wonderful bedside manner. I can't say enough good things about him, but that just stuck with me in a negative way. And so I went ahead and had the third sinus surgery. They kept every 6 months watching it. And sure enough, the day came when they said, it's growing. It's about to hit the optic nerve and affect your vision. It'll affect the peripheral vision. You could have double vision. And there was just a long list of things that it could affect. And so what they wanted to do was, again, 2 teams of surgeons and 2 full teams. One, the sinus surgeon, go up, bring the other neurosurgeon to the base of the brain, where they would cut into the bone. They would cut into the pituitary, which is surrounded by bone, take out the tumor. They cannot see the difference in the color of the tumor versus the regular gland. It's the same color. So they want to take more than they think they need and hope that the remaining part of that gland will pick up and function. Otherwise, you need to be on medication for life to supplement it. And then they had to cut into my leg and take tissue from my leg to create a closure for the pituitary gland, because I did have a spinal fluid leak during that surgery, and they needed to stop it, and then they needed to protect it. So they said, well, you can never go scuba diving, and you can never go, jumping out of a plane because of the pressure. There's no bone, right? It could cause a problem. And so that's fine with me, because I'm not that kind of an adventure person, but I did manage to get through
You're
this.
having enough adventure here. Your whole life is an adventure. You don't need extra.
Right. Yes, not exactly the kind that I want to sign up for, but
You're like, I've had enough. I don't need to jump out of a plane.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so this photo was taken after I got out of surgery. It was taken by my husband. You can't see it, but I was hooked up to a lot of machines. And I was in the critical care unit for 5 days. and my husband was with me the entire time. He only left to get food or to go to the car one time if somebody, my daughter or somebody else was there with me. So I was never by myself, but I was, it took a long time. And here's an interesting thing. They tell you, you can't look down. Don't look down. So for weeks, I'm walking around I don't want to look down. If you try that, it's not easy to do. And the reason why is because all the work they did, they needed everything to just go into place and start to heal. And when he finally did my checkup and said, yes, you can, I want you to look down now. I was crying and I was in so much fear. He said, what are you crying for? I'm right here. Nothing's going to happen. And I was so afraid because I had to look down and there was this pressure that I had never felt before in the movement of my head. It was crazy, but I did it and it was okay. Now, backing up just for a quick minute, I'll tell you when I got home from the hospital before this, because this was like maybe 2 months later, 6 weeks later. But when we first got home from the hospital, I was sleeping in the bed and I woke up swallowing. And I was like, what is that? And so I gently got out of bed and I went over to the bathroom and I was swallowing blood. Blood was pouring down my throat. And when I leaned over, it looked like a murder scene. It was really scary. And we called, 911 and it did subside. And they said, that can happen. Well, no one told us that could happen. So that was very, very scary experience. And I also had a reaction while I'm trying to heal from this. I started sneezing. I sneezed over 100, I think, in 38 sneezes in a 24-hour. 87 of them, because we started counting them, was in the first, no, I think 87 was in the first 24 hours and a total of 138 sneezes before I was able to get a hold of someone. And they said, you're having an allergic reaction, and they had to give me more medication. And then it did stop. But every time you sneeze, you can't sneeze normal. You just had brain surgery and sinus. And so it was sneeze out of your mouth. Don't let pressure go. It was just a lot of craziness. And somehow I made it through that. And I had learned, I was always into fitness. I always wanted to do the newest thing with food. Even back before all of this, I would try different things like Susan Powder or Richard Simmons or, all of these different kinds of ways to eat fat-free or whatever. And so through all of this, I kept trying different things. And eventually I thought, you know what? I heard about this thing called paleo. And I said to my family, it's where you eat all the meat and cheese and dairy that you want. Does anyone want to try this with me? And they all said, oh, yes, let's all do it. And oh man, very quickly I realized that was a mistake because my cholesterol went up, I gained weight, I felt sluggish, I felt terrible. And that's about the time that my oldest daughter said, Mom, I heard this thing I want to try. It's called vegan. And I'm like,
can I just ask, when was this photo?
So that was a little later. That was about 2 years ago. Yes. And so when I learned about vegan, I was like, what's a vegan? What is that? And so I said, yes. So I said to the family, hey, does everyone want to go vegan with, me and the oldest daughter? And no. So we didn't do it together. I did it. And, my husband was really concerned. He's like, what do you mean? Like, you're not going to eat protein? You're not going to eat meat? You're not going to eat this? And I'm like, I really want to try this. I want to try with something that I have control of. I just want to see, like, And he was very reluctant. He was worried. He didn't understand. Nobody did. I didn't really understand what I was doing, but I was willing to try anything. And so I started, and over time, I tried different things. And then I realized vegan wasn't whole food plant-based. And eventually I went whole food plant-based. And then I went SOS-free, and then I went SOS-free. And I was doing, the best that I could, but I had issues with anemia. Okay. And I thought I was doing everything right. And the doctors could not get me. The ferritin was 3. And the ferritin is the storage for iron. There are 3 different kinds of iron. Yeah, hematocrit and hemoglobin and ferritin. My ferritin was so low that the doctor in the emergency room, because I felt weird. I feel like I'm just going to fall over. Walking my dog, and I would look around and I would see, if I fall over, is there anyone that I could reach out to? That's what I would do. And nobody was around. And so eventually I went to the ER, and the doctor said, you're anemic and you're going to need a blood transfusion. And I told him, what I was eating. And he said to me, I really just need you to eat an egg. So you got to eat an egg, just an egg, just eat an egg. I don't know why you picked an egg, because that's not a high range. What? So I said, here I am, and saying, I can't eat an egg, I can't do it. And he actually got a little, I think he was pretty irritated with me. He said, if you don't eat an egg, if you don't do this, you're going to have a blood transfusion. You're going to be back here. And so I started going to other doctors and holistic doctors, naturopaths. I tried B12 shots. I did all kinds of things. And I was on supplements, iron supplements. I even went to a whole food plant-based doctor who put me on a vegan or whole food supplement, but nothing was bringing up the numbers, nothing I did. And so I finally gave in to the idea that maybe some people do have to eat a little bit of animal products. And my doctor said, just a little bit to get the heme iron. And I got to tell you, that was really hard for me. And I felt like it was either that or the blood transfusion. I really didn't know what to do. So I did end up eating some meat again. And all that did was stimulate the dopamine, the sauces, the nonsense. And then I was just doing everything. Crackers and cookies, and I just went crazy. I was just everything and anything. And everything went back. I had a lot of weight gain. My cholesterol was through the roof. I felt terrible. And even going back a little bit more, when my first daughter was born, the trauma of giving birth, I had gotten thyroid condition, hypothyroidism. And I then learned that it turned into Hashimoto's. And it was like 30 years. Nobody ever told me to go to an endocrinologist, which is a specialist for this. People were just saying, just take this little pill once a day for the rest of your life. It's not a big deal. And just to share about the thyroid, which is interesting, right? Because I had a thyroid problem and a pituitary problem. And they're related.
And the sinus too, and all up in the head, right? The
yes.
Neck head.
Yes, because the thyroid is the gland is in the neck, just like you said. And when I got found out that I had Hashimoto's, on the blood panel that I was, that they used to measure it, 30 or below is a normal. You don't have Hashimoto's, 30 or below. And then that scale went to 1,300, and then they don't go anymore. And I was 1,300 plus. Wow. So I had so much inflammation. One of my doctors said, we really need to deal with the elephant in the room. And I didn't feel anything. I didn't really understand that. I mean, even with the pituitary tumor, I didn't feel like anything was wrong. They told me because they saw it in a scan. It was so weird to think that I felt fine. like people walk around feeling fine when they're not fine. And I think that's something to be brought up, you know, to make an awareness. You might, you know, you hear about people, they have a heart attack, they didn't even know they had a heart condition. And it's because you don't always feel it.
Well, it's kind of like the body's trying to stop you from feeling it, right? By isolating the inflammation, whether it's cardiac, whether it's brain, is it's only when that inflammation bursts, whether that's a heart attack or a tumor ruptures and spreads or whatever, that we then feel it. And then we feel we need to deal with it. But you're right, and that's a strong calling for you, right? Is you had a brain tumor and you didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, I tried to do everything I could with dealing with the Hashimoto's and all of that. But so kind of jumping ahead and talking about that last picture that you showed me. Well,
yes.
Before I actually got to that, you know, I was back on the standard American diet. I was trying to, you know, even through all of that, I never corrected my anemia. Isn't that interesting? Never corrected. And so I have 3 adult children. I have 4 grandbabies now. I'm very proud of my family, my husband. And at that time, my 2 daughters became pregnant at the same time. Their babies are 5 weeks apart. They were high-risk pregnancies. It was during COVID. And their doctor, towards the end of their pregnancies, said that they should, you know, get the COVID vaccine. Now, I'm sharing this with you because this is what happened to me. Everybody should do what they want. I know this is a really tough topic, but this is what happened to me. I chose not to get the vaccine. But then when the kids were about to have these babies, my grown children, I was going to be in the hospital with one of them. And this was at a time when people weren't allowed to go in or out, no visitors. It was like, you know, early on in this whole COVID thing. And they said, you know, Mom, you know, would you just consider it, because our doctors are telling us that we should do it and we're going to, you know, make that decision. And I felt like, I don't want to be by these brand new babies and get anyone like, give something to them that could potentially kill them. I mean, I didn't understand the virus. I didn't understand the whole thing. And so reluctantly, I went and had the vaccine, and I had both parts. And I had a reaction with the first one. I was extremely ill for over 2 weeks. I was very, very nervous at the time when they gave it to me. I thought I was waiting to have anaphylactic shock, which I have also had before. And nothing happened. And I remember crying, just thinking like, oh my God, I hope nothing happens, because I really did not listen to my intuition. I didn't know enough. Had I not been going into the hospital for these brand new babies, maybe I'm sure my decision would have been different. But at the time, I thought this was the best thing for me and to protect these new babies. And when I was in the hospital, we were in the hospital and then at my daughter's house a total of 9 days. On day 5, I noticed my right toe went numb. I couldn't feel my toe all of a sudden. I'm like, what is going on? First, I thought, did I sleep wrong? What's happening? No, I just couldn't feel my toe. And it never got better. And then by the time we were at her house and I was helping get up, I was cleaning, I was bringing the baby to her, I was trying to help her in any way that I could. And I remember starting to feel sensations of these buzzing, like it felt like this bzz, 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 bzz. Or like when you hit your funny bone, tingling on my feet, on my hands. I couldn't understand what is going on. And so I was exhausted from not sleeping. I had this weird feeling. I couldn't feel my toe. And I remember being at my daughter's house with a broom. I was sweeping. And I just remember leaning up against the wall and just completely sobbing because I knew that she needed me, and I knew that there was nothing. There was nothing that I could do. That something was wrong, and I had to leave her after this C-section, and I just felt awful, and I just apologized profusely, and I drove home, and I got into bed, and I slept for like on and off for weeks, for weeks. I mean, I got up to go to the bathroom and eat, and this just started to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And I forgot to mention that I had, in between all of this, I had a back surgery for a herniated disc, and I thought, maybe it's coming from that. So I started calling the surgeon, I started calling all the doctors, I went to Mayo Clinic, they did all these tests on me, EMGs, which are nerve tests, and they tilt tests and MRIs of the whole spine, the back, everything. Every test came out normal. They sent me all these places, and everyone said, you're fine. Like, I'm not fine.
But even before they said you're fine, how can you be fine with all you've already been through? That's enough before you've even got a new problem. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, and that's true. But it wasn't looked at in that perspective. You're absolutely right. And so I just wanted to find answers. So I just kept going. They had me go to a pain management clinic where they were giving me gabapentin and all these nerve blocking medications, and it wasn't working. And they were switching it and just switching it. And I was like, what else is there? This isn't working. And when I questioned and said, could this be from the vaccine? I got some different answers, and I saw 4 different neurologists, and I got no, absolutely not. I got maybe, but you'll never be able to prove it. I got, I don't know. I mean, I got, they can't, at the time, it was like very political. And I'm like, I just need help here to figure out what's going on. I'm not trying to bring something up that's going to upset anyone, but if that's the cause, I shouldn't be looking that direction. And so they basically sent me to a PTSD program and told me it was all in my head. It was my emotions, and I needed to learn how to deal with emotions. And I actually did interview for the program. But I don't, I didn't do that program. And then my husband and we started calling all over the country. I actually tried Rochester. I was here in Arizona at Mayo Clinic. I tried the other one at Rochester, not Minnesota. Yeah, it is Minnesota. But they declined because there's a thing in there where you don't want to offend their doctor, and go to another one. So they said, if I asked my current doctor permission, if he was okay with it, then they would let me. And I did ask him, and he said he would agree to have that doctor look at my things together. But they again said, there's nothing wrong. And like, don't, if you're feeling something, we don't see anything. And so I went to Johns Hopkins also, and made an appointment, and I didn't end up doing that one because the wait was, I think some of these appointments across the US were 8-9 month waits for the appointments. But something happened with our insurance at the time, and even though I flew to Washington, they ended up canceling my appointment. But what happened in that picture was, before I got diagnosed, and I will tell you about the diagnosis, I was basically bedridden for 14 months. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And any movement that I had would make the sensations like climb up my foot, up my leg, up my knees. And it would just drop to my knees. It was in my arms, it was across my chin, it was my lips, it was my shoulders, my fingers. I couldn't close my hands. It was the bottom of my feet. I couldn't sit at a table in my house and feed myself, because if I leaned forward to do the spoon, I couldn't lean forward because it would send these sensations. I had a triangle shape of buzzing between the webbing of my, between my fingers and my knuckles here. And I mean, it was just horrific. I would sit in a chair with my legs up, and then I would just go to the bedroom. I couldn't even go walk to the bathroom. And so it just ended up that I would just be in the bed. If I did get up, it would take me sometimes 4 days for the sensation of just not moving to calm down. And this doesn't stop. You go to sleep, it's through the night, doesn't stop. And that was mentally so difficult to deal with, a pain. And it wasn't a pain like you broke your arm. It was this sensation that never gave. And I remember sitting up in my bed with my husband, who was trying desperately to figure out what to do. He just would tell me, I don't know what to do, how to make this go away. And I just said, I'm not suicidal, but I want to live in this body like this. Like, I could not picture how is this never going to go away. And so we had these brand new babies, and I didn't tell very many people because I didn't want to take away the joy from the new babies and the family and talk about something that was negative that nobody had any answers about. So I was very isolated, very alone, and couldn't find any help. And so that picture was after I had put on 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And my mother had turned 80, and we did a surprise, like a birthday party for her. And I did everything in my power to just be a part of it for a short period of time. And so I'm hiding my hand behind my back because I was wearing wrist braces and elbow braces because they said I had carpal tunnel. They didn't know what to do with me. And you can see my shoe. I was wearing the cushiest shoes that I could find, and just got up to do this picture, put this outfit on. I had shorts underneath. And then I went back to bed for about 4 days or more to bring the sensations down. And I finally came across a doctor, a neurologist, who said he had one more test to try. And that was it was like a puncture where they take the small pieces of your flesh on the leg, one at the hip, one above the knee, and one above the ankle. And they punch out the skin, and they send it to check the nerves, the small nerves. And then he came back and he said, we have a diagnosis. Oh my gosh. Somebody now is validating that this is a real thing. I felt validated. I felt like, yes, okay. So I said, what caused it? And what's the treatment plan? And like, what are we going to do? And he said to me, we'll never know the cause. It's only going to get worse. And you're always going to have to be on brain altering medications. And basically, like, see you in 6 weeks. I was like, what?
What was it called? What did they call it?
Small fiber neuropathy. Now, when people have diabetes, they tend to have like a neuropathy, which is a tingling on the bottom of the feet. There's a main nerve that runs down the leg, and that one is what's affected. Then there's little fibers that go off of the big nerve, the small fibers, and they run all through our body. And my small fibers were affected. So that's why it was jumping everywhere. Wow. And so I was just trying to do my best to figure it out, to travel. My husband's like, we can go to Germany, we could go anywhere, we could do anything. I mean, we're not like rich people, but we were like, okay, we have to figure this out. And I started going to acupuncturists, and I'm like, if he's not going to help me, I've got to find another way. So I learned about circadian rhythm. I started doing Wim Hof breathing and plunges in our pool at 50 degrees, which is freezing cold, for 10 minutes. I tried disconnecting the Wi-Fi at night. We didn't have any lights. We didn't watch TV. We just had candles when it went dark, blackout shades. We took everything out of the bedroom or disconnected it from the wall. I tried everything natural that I could. And I would go outside and watch the sunrise and do grounding, which is earthing. You put your feet on the ground and you try to just, get the natural, you know about that. I know, I've seen you do earth grounding.
I love it. I love it. I think it's so important. It's what so many people are missing. But sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, and so, I just did everything. I did acupuncture, which was super painful. Because I was so inflamed. Let's see, what else? So I had the diagnosis, I started doing all those things, and then I knew that I was going to be having a blood test come up to check my cholesterol, which was elevated because I was heavy like that, and I was a mess, and I wasn't moving, I was just laying, and so I decided, I didn't tell anyone in my family. The baby, the youngest one that I was in the hospital with when my toe went numb, and by the way, that never cleared up at this time. He had his first birthday, and he had a party. And after that party, I just decided I know how to bring my cholesterol down. I know about Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn from Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. He wrote a book. He's a cardiologist. I'm just going to start eating like that. I know what to do. And I started eating like that, and I didn't really tell anyone. And 3 weeks later, I had the blood test, and it dropped my cholesterol 50 points, 50.
Wow.
50 points. And I was eating whole plant-based foods. And I took away the salt, the sugar, and the oil. I wasn't having any of that. And then what I realized was that I could move a little bit. I could kind of move my hips, or I could make a fist. I could get up, and I was just like, whoa, it's the food. It's the food, something about the food. And I just kept just going down that road and just being patient and allowing whatever was happening that I didn't understand, that was helping with this nerve problem, with this ability to move. And it just slowly, and I mean slowly, I'm talking 2 years slowly, but I was able to get up. I was able to start to do things. And then I went and did a water fasting at True North Health Center. It was a medically supervised water fast. I flew to Santa Rosa, California. And I got to tell you, I was scared to death to get on a plane. First of all, I didn't know how I was going to walk to the gate. I didn't know how I was going to pick up my bag, how I would put it anywhere. So I had to wait until I was well enough to walk and know that if I couldn't do it, I was just going to walk through it. I was going to ask for help. I was just going to do what I had to do. Something was working in the food, and I just felt like my life depended on me water fasting and going down this road of this food. And as fearful as I was, I mean, my husband dropped me off at the airport. I was sobbing, and he said, you don't have to go. You don't have to do this, because he couldn't go with me at the time. He had a job that he needed to go into the office for. And I looked at him and I said, I do have to. I do have to go. It was just, I had to see if this was going to work. this crazy radical idea of water fasting. My family thought I was already nuts. By eating fruits and vegetables, that's going to cure you. But yes, it can cure you. It can always help you. And so I went there. I felt sorry for myself. I was isolated. They were doing lockdowns at the time, and it was raining. And I stopped feeling sorry for myself, and I felt grateful that I had this opportunity. And while I was water fasting, at the end of a 14-day water fast, when they took my blood, I had no more anemia.
Wow. That's incredible. How long had you been plant-based at this time?
At that time, that was like within 8 months. It was a handful of months, 6, but then I went, because I did it, then I didn't because the iron thing, so starting over again, right? But I gave up meat and that kind of stuff before that anemia 20, 30 years ago. But it's never been linear. It's always been this up and down. But,
wow. So you were plant-based and then you did water fasting and then you had a blood test and it said you weren't anemic.
Yeah, and I asked the doctor there, don't you have to eat the iron to how is that? I haven't eaten anything. And he said, it was in there. I don't know. He didn't know either. I was like,
yeah. When I cured mine, the doctor was like flabbergasted, like just couldn't comprehend that because I'm missing the part of my stomach which absorbs iron. And it's incredible that whole foods, if you eat what you need, the body heals.
Body heals. Yeah. And so, people would say to me, well, you water fasted. Are you cured? And, I have to prepare myself for that question. And it's not a light switch. It's not an aspirin. It's not a pain medication. It takes time for the body to process things, to release things, to build things, to create cells, to do all of this work. I had been beating the crap out of myself, not knowing for years and years and years. It's not going to change that quickly, 100%. And so I would say to people what I, talk to the doctor. I would say, I need to wait another 6 to 8 weeks before I say if anything worked or not. And that made it easier because, when you don't know and you don't have people understanding, the last thing you want is anyone being like, well, that was a waste of time, or, hey, stupid, or like whatever. Or people that are loving and they care, but they don't get it. This way, I gave them an answer that it's okay, we're not going to know right away, and I'm going to let you know when I get to that point. And that really helped, and people were like, okay. And by the time I got to that point, I can say with 100% confidence that the water fasting catapulted me to healing faster. I would have gotten there without it, I believe, but it's going on, it'll be 3 years, August 22nd, that I have been on this journey again, and I gave up flour and alcohol in addition to the salt, oil, and sugar and gluten. Yep. And now I'm 99% cured of the small fiber neuropathy. I feel my toe, which I love and appreciate, my big toe, and I can do anything I want. I can run, I can jump, I can exercise. I can dance, play with the grandbabies instead of watching them play. I can travel. Life is such a joy. I can be curious. I can, hold a pen. I couldn't hold a pen. I can, so that's why if you watch any of my content, I always say that it gave me my life back. It really gave me my life back. And I never take it for granted. And does that mean I'm never going to get sick or I'm never going to have a problem? No. I wear a weighted vest because I have a problem that I'm trying to solve, osteoporosis. But I'm so much stronger now. I do 100 push-ups every day.
Wow. That's amazing. What an incredible journey you've been on. Like absolutely phenomenal. And look at you now.
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you so much for the platform, for the opportunity, you know, and I became a certified plant-based nutrition coach because I wanted to reach those people. I wanted to find those people in that doctor's office where he says to you, you're never going to get better. Nothing's ever going to work for you. You're going to always be on this medication. And I wanted to get those people that were in that room where I was when I didn't want to live anymore and just say, just try something radical. Just try some real food, some fruits and vegetables. Give your body a chance to get rid of the inflammation. Bring it down. Get it out of there so it can do its real job. And do your own blood tests. Do your own work. Make yourself your own example. You don't have to believe me, but at least give it a try. What do you have to do? You're already wherever you are, right?
That's right. I think sometimes people have a journey to go on and have to be pushed to a point where they're happy to let go of their comforts, right? I think sometimes people are still comfortable while they're sick and they're not aware. But when it's like life or death, holding a pen or not holding a pen, it's a no-brainer. And then it shows why you've gone on to share with such passion because of your journey.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. Yes. And, you know, if I can inspire somebody or just bring awareness, you know, that's a big thing I've learned and I share sometimes is if you don't have the awareness, that's really sad. And I want to make you aware. If you know and you choose not to do it, then that's something that's your choice. But I feel like it's important for people to be aware that this is something that can make an improvement. It can make a change. It can be a huge change. And I'm still continuing to learn. I'm just having so much fun, you know, being curious, making foods. You don't have to make it complicated either. You can, but using the dehydrator, you know, a cooked food. I mean, just real food, wherever you are. Make a little change and see, you know, that's what I like to share.
So can I ask, what sort of things were you eating to heal?
Okay, so I started just like oatmeal, fruit, vegetables. I was doing a pound of steamed vegetables for breakfast. I would just eat cucumber, any vegetables, any fruits. I got rid of everything else. And lentils and beans and legumes and grains, different grains. And then I got to a point where I heard that rice and oatmeal can, in some people, cause inflammation in the sinus. So I was the experiment for myself. Oatmeal is a wonderful thing, but for me, I wanted to try. What does that do to me? And over the course of 6 months, I had less inflammation because I went to the sinus. So when I transferred all the eating and brought the cholesterol levels down to 50 points, you know, I had a huge eruption in my body. I had terrible breakout. I had a cyst that formed on my hand. I had this gigantic, huge, like, it was like, I don't want to call it a pimple. I mean, it was huge. I was sneezing. I got a sinus infection. I went back to the allergist, and I kept eating this way, and they treated me for all these things. And lo and behold, I felt like this all of a sudden erupted. I thought it was something that I was going to have surgically removed. I thought it was like some kind of skin growth or something. It didn't look like a pimple or anything. And you know what? I felt like it erupted one day, and I felt like it's the dairy coming out of me. And my body, this went away, and it was just bringing down. I had my levels checked for Hashimoto's. I still have Hashimoto's, but I told you it was 1300 plus. I got it down. It's not staying there, but I did get it down for a minute to 64. 64.
Wow. That's incredible. incredible.
And now it's back up. Yeah, I haven't had it tested recently, but the last time it was around 1,100. Still better than 1,300 plus. No, I'm sorry, it was 154 right in there. Yeah, and it's come down, but there's some things I need to still figure out, and I'm working on that.
Wow. So anyone out there listening who's gone through a lot and has chronic health issues, where would you suggest they start?
Well, you have to don't, where should you start? Start right in your kitchen. See what you're eating. Become aware of what is it. If you're eating ketchup or barbecue sauce or canned things, start looking at the labels. Start looking at the ingredients. And try to eat something fresh, more salads, like all the different components. It doesn't mean you only eat lettuce. You need more substance than just lettuce, but there are so many beautiful, vibrant colors. Walk around in your grocery store, find something that you don't know what it is, and research it. Figure out what you could do with it, and then go back to the store and buy it. And it's fun to experiment. And that's what I would say. Start there and start to see if you can make any changes. And people make changes slowly. People make changes overnight, all 100%. It depends on where you're at. But being aware and paying attention. Are you eating roasted, salted, caramelized pecan nuts? Well, what would happen if you changed those to just raw pecans? Is there a difference, right? What if you brought that down to a small amount instead of the whole bag? Like, make little changes, see, and then get involved with the community for support, for love, for interaction, so you don't feel alone on an island, because you're not. And just start there. That's what I would do.
I love all of that. Thank you so much, Jennifer. This has been amazing. I'm blown away by your journey, your strength, all you overcame. And anyone watching, Jennifer's details are in the description, and go follow her. She's amazing. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. So thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you so much, Skye. I really appreciate this opportunity. It was really wonderful to be able to share with you, and I hope that if you've heard my story or you've heard things like that, that it's a reminder that you are not alone. You can keep doing this. And also, if this is new to you, please, investigate. And I do want to say, thank you, Apple a Day. Jennifer is such a sweetheart, strong and mighty. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kiko. Thank you, Apple a Day. Anyone that's watching that put comments in, I appreciate it. And oh wow, no idea how much Jennifer had to go through. Thank God she's shining out. Oh man, thank you. So I just love everyone, and I just wish us all to, do what I do on my show, and that is dance with my appliances. So next time,
I love that. Go dancing in the kitchen, everyone. I'm going to do that today.
Don't forget to eat your greens, and of course, I always want you to give plants a chance. Thank you, Skye.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bye.
Bye, everyone.